Hi, I'm Kirsten, or My Red String, and I am doing the 15-day video challenge. Today is day 4, even though I've only been doing this for 2 days, whatever. Today I'm talking about my most difficult experiences. Talking about 3 different experiences that have been most difficult on me. First one is in my junior year of high school. My dog Chica was getting increasingly sick, and she had digestive problems, and she wasn't doing well. She kept getting increasingly sick, and she was getting to the point where she wasn't eating, and she was getting really thin, and she had little energy, and she wasn't herself. She was this beautiful, sweet, golden retriever, yellow lab mix, and she was absolutely adorable and precious, and she's the sweetest dog I've ever met. And I grew up with her. I had her since I was in, I want to say 4th grade. Really, I was pretty young when we got her, and it was a pretty big deal when she started getting sick, and that was really hard on all of us. My whole family had a really hard time with it. She kept getting increasingly sick, and around May of my junior year of high school, it was around AP testing time, so we had been talking about putting her down, and fortunately we put it off. I'm not sure if my parents, or my mom and my brother, I think, actually did it. I took her to the vet for it, but they waited at least until I was done with my AP test, so it was the day after, so that at least was out of the way before that happened. But it was it was increasingly more difficult to deal with that, and it just needed to be done because she wasn't getting better, and she wasn't living a good life anymore, and it was really hard. But that was my first most difficult experience. And my second one would have to be when last November, my freshman year of college, I was sitting in a lecture, and I got a text from my friend saying, "I'm so sorry about Austin." And Austin was one of my friends, and I didn't know what he was talking about, and I thought he was I didn't know what he was talking about. And and I found out a minute later that he had died, or I thought he had. He had fallen off of a ladder in a construction site that he had been working at. I graduated with him, so he had moved on from high school into this construction job, and it was really great, and he was really enjoying it. It was a complete shock to me because I was not expecting it all. It was a complete shock, and I found out a little while later that he hadn't actually died, and that he was actually just in a really bad coma, and he had a lot of brain damage, and that it didn't look good. And a few days later he did pass on, and it was really hard because I'd basically already processed it by the time he did die, and it was just really bizarre and strange, and yeah, it was just not a fun time. And I think that's when I started getting the worst of my anxiety, because I got to this point where I was like, I need to be there for all of my friends, because life is so short, and they could all die at any point, and it was not healthy. But I basically was like, if you ever need to talk to me about something, if you ever need a ride somewhere, or if you ever need help, I was just like, I'll be there for you. And it was, I mean, I really wanted to be, but it's like I can't do all that, and it's impossible, but that had a huge impact on my life, and I'm still sort of adjusting and trying to reel that back in and, like, set boundaries. And I know I've sort of talked about this a little bit before. I'm not sure if I've talked about it this directly, but on my blog, but this event had a huge effect on me, and it's been a little over a year since he died now, and I'm still trying to adjust from, like, the kind of the impact that it had on my life. So it's been a process that had a huge impact on me. And I think the last thing that I'm going to talk about, and this is getting pretty long already, so I'm going to make it quicker, but as many of you know, probably most of you who really pay attention to my blog, Andrew, my boyfriend, visited me from Australia in June to July last summer, and that was awesome. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and it was wonderful. It was great. We got to be with each other, and he got to meet my family and my friends, and it was amazing. And then he left, and it was one of the hardest things, walking away from him in the airport was definitely the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And I know it sounds really sappy, but it really was not easy for me. And the weeks after him leaving were incredibly difficult for me because I was going through a lot of anxiety. I actually got a job at a fair, which was an experience completely on its own. If you want to ask me about that, go ahead. But it was, I think, the last, or no, it was like the second night of the fair that I was working at. It was only a few days, but I had a massive anxiety attack. I was hyperventilating. I had no idea what was going on. It was really scary, and fortunately I had my brothers, and my brothers were there, and they sort of took care of me. And I ended up getting on Skype with Andrew later. But it was a very scary thing for me, and I mean, there was a lot of other stuff that affected my anxiety at that point in my life, but like those weeks after Andrew left were definitely not a high point in my life. It was probably the most difficult, like, span of time, like, especially for how short they were. Like, it was a pretty small amount of time for how much anxiety and, like, pain and suffering I went through just because of how bad my emotions were at that point in my life. So, thanks for watching. That's, I think, the end of what I'm gonna say about that. Thanks for putting up with this. I know you don't have to watch things, but thanks if you do, because I'm putting a lot of myself out there, I guess, and if you care to listen, then thanks. Bye.